shall defile the temples of the ancient gods. A cruel and violent death shall be his fate.
Cinematic Fantastic.
Klaatu, Barada, Nikto.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Bitten by a werewolf and lives, becomes a werewolf himself.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to the Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Weatherford.
And your other host, William Weatherford.
Get ready for opinions, dad jokes,
and bad jokes
as we watch and review sci-fi and fantasy films from the classics of yesteryear to the new favorites of today.
Greetings and welcome to the 32nd episode of Cinematic Fantastic. Today we are doing the sort of continuing with the Universal Monster revival we have on our hands, which sort of spans from Son of Frankenstein and the Invisible Man Returns, all the way to like the creature from the Black Lagoon, with the relaunch of the nearly dead The Mummy franchise, The Mummy's Hand. Not any other part of his body.
Not his foot, not his head.
Not his foot,
no.
Not his head, just his hand.
And all the other ones, don't they just say something like just his tomb or his curse? And it's like his hand.
His noun.
Yes, his hand. Not his heart, not his mind, his hand.
But let's just get one thing out of the way before we get into this amazing production we have here. Steve, Babe, and Poopsie, his girlfriend, are the worst names that you could pick.
Steve's
for this
great.
movie.
Come on, Steve.
Steve is good, but we literally have a dude named Babe.
Yeah.
And a girlfriend, Poopsie, who doesn't appear in this name, in this movie. Please rename these characters.
I don't think Poopsie is her real name, okay? It's like when you say, Shmoopy Whoopikins or something. I mean, that's not her real name. But Babe constantly is talking about Poopsie, and he has a little dancing doll that he calls Poopsie as well. Here's what I don't understand. Is the movie is called The Mummy's Hand, and he only shows up in like the last 30 minutes. I mean, he shows up and starts killing at maybe the 30, 40 minute mark. But this is an hour and 6 minute long movie. I just think we saw Boris Karloff as the mummy right away.
Really, really fast paced.
It kind of is, but there's parts where it kind of drags a little bit, where you kind of have the misadventures of.
It drags as much as the mummy's own feet.
As the shambling. Yes, this is a shambling movie, and it only really starts picking up.
A lot of it is the dialogue in this movie.
Yeah, and there's some scenes that kind of.
And I will note in the plot where it does start to drag a little bit, although probably not the dialogue. I won't count like the exact lengths of time that the dialogues are, but I sure am gonna do a bunch of other stuff other than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it'll be fun.
Yeah. It's fun. Look, it's when a movie is not the greatest ever, and they make some really baffling, decisions or things. You're kind of like, why did they do that? Or they make an attempt at comedy. Those are great to kind of just really, give them a ribbing. But the
one thing I do seem to know is, from what I hear, that this franchise it doesn't get better than this, really.
No, it really doesn't.
The Mummy's Tomb it'll start dropping down in quality, and it'll also be getting shorter than 1:06 as well. Started to encroach into the 57 minutes, I'm guessing.
They do save money too by moving the setting to America, because some of the characters after this movie, it takes place 2 years in the future. The Mummy's Tomb does, after Mummy's Hand, and two of the characters have white hair, and they have old people makeup, because it's like 10 years in the future, which is strange because that would make it 1950. I don't understand that, but whatever. But
yeah, well, technically,
but you save money.
Technically. Egypt is in Africa, and so therefore Africa is in California.
California, right, which is what we made that joke in the Tarzan episode, I think.
No, the Invisible Ray episode.
No, did we? Well, we made the joke in Tarzan as well, because we said that Africa was in California too.
No.
Yeah.
The joke didn't
The
originate
redwoods.
there.
Well, we said something similar to that. That's what, I think it was the birth. It was the, you could feel the joke kicking around.
It was the first episode we ever did where we covered anything in Africa.
That's true. So there was there's some
I bless those rains.
Yeah, me too. But the thing is, you can film in America, and it's basically just a universal backlot, for the city, for like a town or a city. So you save money in that way.
But yeah, anyway, you can obviously see in the movie the great, extremely amazing forest and grasslands of Egypt.
You mean
amazing.
the Sonoran Desert? No, it's the Sonoran Desert in California.
At least the eastern border.
You're like, don't talk about that. It's definitely Egypt. Hush. This is definitely the jungle where there's these big Aztec-looking ruins. No, it's not on the back lot. Reuse sets from another movie. No. But see, that's how you save money. Is you reuse sets.
What was the budget for this movie?
It was $80,000, which is not that much, but they still went $4,000 over budget. And they really worked people to the bone, especially the contract workers, the contract Universal actors.
I mean, especially when in the industry of much of everything, you're literally probably like working with virtual money. You're working with money that don't have yet.
It's a contract
that you're sort of needing to have, and so there are times you need to recognize I need more money.
They covered your room and board. Anything you wanted, you could get. They could deposit something in your bank account for you. It's not like people were working for free, and you felt like a poor person while you're making this movie. No, you were taken care of to an extent. Now, okay, The Mummy's Hand, is it a sequel to The Mummy with Boris Karloff? The answer is no.
It is a reboot.
It is a reboot. It is very much a reboot.
Although, again, it will be rebooted like 40 years in the future from its last entry in this reboot, which is the 1999 The Mummy with Dwayne Johnson as the Scorpion.
Yeah, that's in The Mummy Returns is where Dwayne Johnson comes in. But it's mostly Brendan Fraser and Arnold Vosloo and Rachel Weisz. Honestly, the Mummy does get remade a couple times, and there's other Mummy movies that are very lesser known. I have a theory as to why they did The Mummy the way they did, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Remind me on that.
Well, I mean, the Mummy, last we saw it, was actually sort of around the hour, if I do recall. But it only had like one scene with the Mummy versus they could advertise like, oh, we have 2 scenes with the Mummy. Amazing.
Or 3 or 4. Yeah.
Technically 4. They do stretch it out a lot.
But honestly, when you ask somebody about, okay, what's the creature from those movies, the Mummy, what does it look like? They're probably talking about the guy in this, either the guy in this movie or the Lon Chaney version. But it's basically a guy with his hair kind of crusty and slicked back with a wrinkled face, his whole body bandaged over, and he's like dragging a foot behind him with the bandage kind of.
And he has his arm up in this movie, which I do believe coincidentally happens in every other movie. I believe in this movie it was because he like broke it, I believe.
Well, he likes choking people out with it.
Well, yeah, he does, but he holds it up as if it's injured, like throughout the rest of the movie.
That's his fighting hand. That's his choking hand.
But yeah, he's not as iconic. He's not as iconic as, of course, Boris Karloff's death stare of the century.
Yes, absolutely, very good. But honestly, all of the monsters, they can all share one thing that's very important, and they were all on cereal boxes. You had there was I can't remember what the mummy had. Was it marshmallow mummies or something? I don't know, but it was a Frankenberry cereal was the creature. They had Count Chocula. Boo Berry was a ghost. So I
didn't think they had a mummy in that series.
I could be wrong.
If so, they'd have a bride too.
Yeah,
I'd say Creature of Black Lagoon would be better because look, it's swimming around in your cereal.
Yeah, that would make sense. So, but let's
talk about the director.
This is definitely a B movie, and the director is Christy Cabanet. Yes, that's his name, Cabanet. Looks like Caban, but it's Cabanet. So the thing about Christy Cabanet is he was a silent film actor, director. He worked under really big names like D.W. Griffith.
Intolerance.
Yeah, and Mr. Intolerance, Mr. Birth of a Nation himself. So we've talked about that before in previous episodes, so you can check those out. So he also gave Shirley Temple her big break in The Red-Haired Alibi in 1932. He was a very efficient director, very quick. He made films very quick, many times in locations that were very inhospitable or rugged. That matches this pretty much. Also, a lot of other silent film directors that we later saw move over into motion pictures, they did very well. I think they probably learned how to make a dollar stretch. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Roger Corman does really good with low budget movies. Carpenter.
But Monogram Pictures, what we talked about their ape stuff, they literally did crank out stuff all
B
the time.
and C, level stuff. If their best stuff is B movies.
They were sort of on the side of, they were Poverty Road, just absolute, they didn't spend as much money as, Universal. They weren't as big either. I mean,
I like low budget
there was
movies,
producers
though.
releasing Corp PRC, which was the bottom of the barrel, which they were did do deals with. But
yes.
Backtracking to Shirley Temple, we did talk about her extensively in our silent film episodes, which were the earlier episodes.
We did.
The first 5 episodes of Cinematic Fantastic Season 1. Also, I see Miriam Cooper. I believe I recognized her name probably from the Nosferatu Phantom of the Opera days.
Yeah.
I believe that's where that would make most sense to talk about.
Yeah. Also, her name is very similar to Marion C. Cooper, but it's not. It's Miriam.
Cooper. Maybe that's why. What was she? Where is Marion C. Cooper?
Marion C. Cooper was King Kong.
He was the director of King Kong.
Yeah.
That's why it's similar.
Yeah, but I think she was an actress, silent film actress of the same kind of caliber as like a Lillian Gish, and Lillian Gish was, she was in Night of the Hunter. She was the mother, the old lady.
Yeah, Night of the Hunter was a really great movie.
Freaking fantastic!
It was fantastic. It had Robert Mitchum. It was Charles Laughton's one and only directed film. And honestly, go check it out. I think I still don't think it's on a streaming service yet. It should be.
It's on the Criterion streaming service, which there's a couple.
Go watch it there.
Yeah, there's a couple of really good streaming services out there for real classic movies and ones that are.
But unfortunately, there are some that are not on there. In particular, there are public domain movies, as we talked about last episode with the archive.org news, which was a good site for finding those public domain movies that are so old that the copyright expired on them and they're free to watch
or people
legally.
aren't really pushing the copyright. They're not fighting it. So okay, let's talk about the actors in this movie. This B movie, let's just say it's a B movie, okay, guys?
I'd 100% have to say that this is a B movie, especially with Cabanet being a Monogram Pictures director.
You know what I think? His life turned out okay. He got married. He had some kids. He had a decent life. I can't fault somebody for working for a C level picture. There's some of my favorite directors directed really terrible C level movies, and they just did it. And and also, that's where Sam Raimi started out, making his own movies with film out in the Tennessee woods with a cabin.
You know what? I'll give you that.
So Dick Foran, who plays Steve Banning in this, the lead role. I mean, he was a tall guy. He had that kind of that square jaw charm, and it works for him. But he's not he's not the top build really ever too much. Very early on, he had a really great singing voice, and so they put him in a lot of singing cowboy movies. He's in a lot of westerns. Of course, that's where a lot of these actors are going to end up. So Dick Foran, he's never really been in any lead roles except for these two Mummy movies here. He is in a lot of movies with bigger name actors, and he kind of plays a bit part.
I see the Petrified Forest. We talked about that earlier.
Betty Davis,
Humphrey Bogart in that.
Yep.
Errol
Flynn movies. Mae West. After he started transitioning away from movies, he was in a lot of TV shows. He was never like a main character. He's always like a bit part that was very memorable or very good. Let's talk about the other male sidekick character played by Wallace Ford. He plays Babe Jensen. Yes, the name that you hate. He plays Babe Jensen. His name is not really Wallace Ford. It's Samuel Grundy Jones. He was born in England He's an American citizen, born in England, came to America back in 1914. Okay, when he was 16, him and another guy named Wallace Ford, another young kid, they decided to head south to the United States to seek their fortunes. Right? They were riding a freight train illegally. That's like riding the rails.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, died on the rails.
His friend died. His friend's name was Wallace Ford. So he changed his acting name to Wallace Ford in honor of him. He's in a lot of comedy roles in his long career. So why would he not be in this? Of course. He was in Todd Browning's Freaks. Of course, we mentioned Todd Browning in our Dracula episode. Listen to that one. That one's pretty good.
Yeah, Freaks was just pretty infamous, and they did cut the end, the ulterior part of the movie, the ending you have in mind, which was severely horrifying. More horrifying than, the stuff we've seen in, like, the Black Cat and maybe Murders of the Morgue, I recall.
It absolutely was, because
compared to that, this movie is like chicken scratch, chicken pot pie.
Almost everybody in that movie was somebody with a birth defect or what at the time might be considered a circus freak.
And this was no Greatest Showman.
No, it was not.
It was Greatest Showman if it was accurate.
It's one of the creepiest movies, just because of what you find that these characters are going to do to this other character.
I wonder if we could have like some Joker movie that could take inspiration from Freaks that might be interesting.
I would say actually there
like this
was
dark circus aesthetic.
Well, okay, here we go. That you mentioned that there actually was. Do you remember Spider-Man Noir from the Spider-Verse movie?
Oh yeah, Into the Spider-Verse.
He was played by Nicolas Cage, and he was always kind of he was like a 1930s kind of character. That was actually a comic book that was made with Spider-Man Noir, and it took place in an alternate 1930s, and they had a character that was the Vulture, but he was really like this guy who would he would eat anything. He would eat, chicken. He could eat the heads off of chickens and stuff. That was like one of those circus freaks kind of characters. That's what the Vulture was. So just they used a lot of 1930s kind of weirdness, like the Freaks movie, to kind of inspire those kind of characters. It may have inspired some Batman stuff as well. But moving on, of course, there was a transition over to a lot of westerns as well for Wallace Ford. He's been 30 years of a career, more than 150 movies.
Ooh, the Andy Griffith Show. We talked about that last episode.
He's been in a lot of stuff. We will see him again in The Mummy's Tomb.
Looking forward to watching that for the first time and see sort of how the Andy Griffith Show is and sort of revisit nostalgia.
Yeah. I always love to do
it. Does it meet up with our brains, or is it just old sauce?
Right, exactly. This movie has a very famous Italian actor who's in like one half of a scene. It's Eduardo Cianelli. He plays the old high priest that passes everything over to the Andoheb. You're the captain now, Mr.
You're
Phillips.
The captain now. Goodbye. And he just the movie does really just slap across with his praying and then send it off the roll, and then he just falls on his face.
That's Eduardo Cianelli. Who I was like, who's this guy? Looked him up. He's had a huge career. So many movies. Italian actor, very famous in Italy, all this kind of stuff. And he just did a little one-off, quick little B movie. It's kind of like, a famous actor just going, I'll just do this one little part in your movie and I'm out. But there's a huge history for the guy. But I figured he only shows up for less than a minute, so I didn't really look into it too much. He does also show up in a movie serial series about a kooky look. Well, it's supposed to be horror. It's supposed to be scary, but it's this goofy looking robot and a evil scientist, and it's called The Mysterious Dr. Satan. And I'm sorry, the dude's name is Dr. Satan. That's the most awesome bad guy name ever. But it is on YouTube, so we might do something with that later.
Next actor's George Zucco.
Yeah. George Zucco, I think, does play Andaheb. He had a kind of a darker face, and he played a lot of kind of scary kind of characters, suave villains, nobility, mad doctors, that kind of thing. I did notice one thing about his face. His face looks very similar to the guy who plays Imhotep in The Mummy and The Mummy Returns that takes place in the 90s or in early 2000s, named Arnold Vosloo. He has a very... I have to show you a picture of Arnold Vosloo. You're going to be like, yeah, he kind of does.
We just mentioned him earlier in The Mummy, so...
Yeah, that's true.
It might just be nostalgia speaking to you and going, he looks like the mummy that I recognized from my childhood in the 90s.
Yes, no. Well, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, you were probably like in college in the 90s.
Yes, I was early college in the late 90s. Okay, so we are going to see George Zuko again as Andoheb in The Mummy's Tomb, and we're going to see him as a different high priest character in The Mummy's Ghost. He's also going to be in Return of the Ape Man. I'm not sure. He only showed up in some publicity photos, so let's wait and see on that.
But the last thing about George Zuko I wanted to say for my sisters who know what I'm referencing, I'm just gonna say that's rough, buddy, and then continue on.
Right. Okay. Cecil Kellaway, who plays the great Solvani, the magician in this movie.
And we talked about him in The Invisible Man Returns. If we didn't do that extensively, then I guess there was a reason. We kind of did,
but we did touch on him. He's a really good actor, I think, in this. And every time I see him, he just has that face, you know. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And now we'll get on to the next actor once I stop scrolling through all the list of stuff that he's in. Oh, and there's a big list for Tom Tyler, too.
Yeah, we'll go into that in just a minute.
Much bigger.
Much bigger. The first person we'll talk about before Tom Tyler is Peggy Moran. She acted in a small handful of B-movies at this time. She stopped working after she got married with a famous director, and she didn't work for the rest of her career. She was just a wife to him. And after he retired, they basically, in 1966, they just traveled the world till 1988. So 20 years of seeing the world and all it has to offer, and they passed away happy. Hey, go figure. Have a great life, She liked working with these other actors. She thought Stick Foran was very nice and very nice guy. Babe was always, ready with a joke. But she didn't talk to Tom Tyler that much.
I mean, he's not that as funny as she describes in this movie that much because, he ate a rock.
He's probably funnier.
Yeah, he ate a rock and he choked on it. And then he ate a rock again and choked on it to cover up to make it seem as if the mummy came and choked him out. But no, it was just the rock. Come on. I would have preferred if it was the Rock himself. That would have been hilarious, actually.
Well, he was
choked out, but instead it was the Rock.
Your generation thinks a lot of like TikToks and YouTubes and Vines are hilarious. So I mean,
no, it's actually interesting seeing movies and experiencing decades which are that I wouldn't be able to experience otherwise because I would be dead by now. And it's honestly really interesting.
You have to take the humor with a grain of salt. Yeah. So Tom Tyler, who plays the titular eponymous, whatever word you want to use, the mummy Karis. You said that they used like a special thing to black his eyes out.
Yeah, they blacked his eyes out every frame, in every close-up shot, as well as using a special mask instead of like the weird wrappings that they used for close-ups when he was far away.
Yeah, and he didn't really say anything. He couldn't really talk with the makeup on.
Not that he would have been able to talk. Not that they would have had him talk at all.
Well, that's what Peggy.
The script would have been like, and that's it.
Peggy Moran said that she didn't really have any conversations with him because he got there really early on set, got the makeup on, and then you can't really talk.
Yeah, they really everyone was working 24/7 on that movie, and then they had to extend the budget again. But like, there wasn't any time for him to take his makeup off.
Yeah, not really.
He did all his scenes early and left.
But without the makeup, he's a very leading man, handsome type. He played Captain Marvel, superhero in the Adventures of Captain Marvel's movie serial. He was also the Phantom, another famous pulp comic strip character. He was in a ton of movies for Monogram and Monarch and all those these B picture, C-level picture Western stuff.
Like, he was king of the serials.
Yeah, and
that can't be denied.
He did do some movies in the 40s with other big name stars. He would just kind of be like a bit part or a side character or something like that. He did a 13 film series called The Three Musketeers.
Musketeers?
Yeah, I think it must have been kind of like a musketeer cowboy kind of movie.
Oh, like a Musketeers, like a joke. It's a pun.
No, I think it's a pun on mesquite. like the wood that you use to cook on that makes the meat taste different, taste better.
Apparently, he was considered for the role of Tarzan in Tarzan the Ape Man that MGM did. Remember that episode?
Yes.
I believe we might have talked about him then.
We did, yeah. We mentioned some actors that were in the running.
You can't compare to an Olympian diver and swimmer.
Johnny Weissmuller.
Johnny Weissmuller. Is that Johnny Weissmuller?
Yeah.
It's him, and he will beat anyone any day.
He's the best.
He will be the best in the midweight wrestling championship.
He's
thinner, but he's not a lightweight, and he's definitely not a heavyweight. So I'd say like an average weight, I guess. You know more than I do.
The reason why they made this movie was the popularity of The Invisible Man Returns, which you've previously done, and Son of Frankenstein. Those actually did make some money, so they were like, how can we keep this going with this mummy guy? We only made one movie of that, and we made 2 or 3 of the Frankensteins. We made the 2 of the Invisible Mans. Let's make some of the mummies. So they did work them very heavily, especially the contract workers of Universal. They worked them till 2 a.m. and everybody else could go home. But hey, them's the breaks, right? But the critics didn't really like this movie too much. And modern critics definitely tear it a new one. They say that of course, one bad thing is that you have to wait a whole 30 minutes of an hour-long movie, hour, 6 minutes, whatever. 30 minutes you have to wait till you actually see the mummy start to do any real damage.
And they only kill 2 people.
Yeah.
And then carry away a girl for nefarious deeds. I won't spoil it until we get to the plot.
Yeah, and everybody's acting is either remarkably casual, or maybe frightened, or just funny. I don't know. They have two different settings that they pretty much go to, and a lot of the acting is mugging and eyebrow acting. So, yeah, this is I think William has not been really introduced to some of the best eyebrow actors in the world, but
I have the last episode. Professor Gibbs, played by John Barrymore.
Yes, thank you. That's right.
Invisible Woman.
That's right. He was eyebrow acting up a storm. Those eyebrows need Oscars. They're just going
an Oscar for each one, and he says, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. I better get to the hospital now."
You love my eyebrows. You really love my eyebrows.
You love me. You all really love me. I don't remember how it actually goes because there's a Mandela effect thing for how it's supposed to go. Mandela effect, if you don't know, is named after a dude named Mandela who was supposedly Nelson Mandela, who supposedly came out of prison, and he either died in prison or people thought he came out of prison. Something like that. Something to do with his prison.
Yes, and they remembered it differently, and they
remembered it differently.
They could have sworn.
Like, for instance, we talking about cereal earlier in this section. Fruit Loops. People were unsure whether it was like Fruit Loops where the fruit was spelled correctly or with 2 O's. I believe it is 2 O's.
It's always been spelled with 2 O's because it's Fruit Loo. So it's O. That's the way it is.
As long as it's ever been with that mascot toucan they have.
And the Berenstain Bears. I mean, it's written by Jan and Stan Berenstain, and it's written in a certain way because that's their last name. So
I believe it's Berenstain. I believe it's Berenstain with an AI. I believe.
Yeah, people.
But again, we could be wrong. These are Mandela effects, and we're trying to do them off the top of our head.
Well, before we move on to the plot, let's just say this. Occam's razor says that sometimes when all things being equal, the easiest explanation or the most simple explanation is generally the right one. So I give you two things to think of, okay, William? Either people are remembering things wrong due to psychological issues with memory and how we keep things in our brains, or number 2, some time traveler changed time, or we're having colliding alternate realities, and that's what's happening. I think the first one is more likely because we can pretty much prove it. But anyway, okay, this was the Mandela effect.
Let's get on to finishing off this reception by saying that it has a 67% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Only 8% more, or 8% more than the Super Mario Bros. Movie that came out this year.
I liked the Mario movie.
It's probably biased. Kept it. I saw a good video that said it was probably kept at 59 because NBC Universal, the higher up company, we're trying to keep it that way for intrigue, going like, oh, it's just 1% into the rotten territory, just 1%. But I don't know. Even still, audience scores are much higher. Go watch that movie. It is actually really rewatchable. I've seen lots of people see it more than 5 times. So
it's fun.
It never really gets truly old.
It's fun, and I enjoyed it. I did not expect it to be, 2001: A Space Odyssey, the movie. It's fun. It's a good time.
And anyone asking for any of their other franchises, I would probably definitely wait, especially with Illumination doing it at the head. It's not gonna be able to do that much seriousness out of everything, like the dudes who made the Minions. But yeah, expect more from the Mario franchise and crossovers with that, rather than the epic Super Smash Brothers movie where they have all the franchises meet into one. That would just be chaos, and
I think that's too much, and too many. It'd be too much bleed over between the two different things. I don't think it could work.
But yeah, my review is that it's definitely not as creepy as iconic as the last movie, nor was it as iconic, because Boris Karloff was just very iconic in that movie.
Yeah,
it was really fast paced. Seemed to sag in the middle as much as is slower than the molasses that was holding the mummy's feet together. Also, for some reason, it took me a while to realize that Andaheb was the villain in the general story structure of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe it could be my fault for not paying too much attention to everything, but maybe it was part of the movie. I don't know. I mean, he didn't look too evil or do anything evil off the bat. And I also didn't realize that he was the professor, and that the professor misled the protagonists about the jar. I'm spoiling. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves on that. But if you like Indiana Jones, there is some inspiration to it, I can tell, from this movie. Because we have an archaeologist digging up in the middle of Egypt, especially the last movie, as well as we even have had a clip of the Indiana Jones in that episode. From what I recall, that was actually a pretty great episode.
The Mummy was a great episode. The thing is, this movie is not meant to be a haunting love story like the Mummy with Boris Karloff is meant to be. That one is more, I think, atmospheric and kind of more serious. This one is it's got a little dancing girl doll and Poopsie, and it's got Babe, and it's got stupid tricks. It's got a bet to see whether he can buy all the drinks for everybody in a whole bar. Come on, it's got. They've got some kind of little secret thing, little thing that they put on somebody's bed to make the mummy kill them or something. Hey, look, William, I want you to make some heads or tails out of this plot. Unwrap it for us, please.
Definitely, but yeah, it might seem extremely short of a production, and that is because really, while we really did collaborate on making up and writing up this production, that we were just blabbering our heads off at all the stuff in it, and we probably had a bit more of the podcast than we have had here. But yeah, we were just absolutely sort of collaborating on this front. I'm excited to do the plot, though. I've had that written up, and I might rewatch the movie yet another time and see if I've missed anything. Who knows, maybe I might count the seconds of dialogue, maybe not. But yeah, this has been this episode of The Mummy's Hand, which is probably going to be nearly as long as the actual movie itself, funnily enough.
Yep, the Mummy's the Mummy's wrist bone, Mummy's elbow. We'll talk about the plot.
The Mummy's metatarsals. That would have been that would have been a much better name. The Mummy's metatarsals. It works. MM.
Yes, metatarsals mummy. Yeah. All right.
That might be the foot, but whatever.
Okay. We've shambled and dragged on enough here. It's time for us to unwrap this mummy, and see if we can really find something to care us about.
Let's open the crypt, and then go right out of the crypt yet again and cover it back up because it wasn't. It only had some dude in it. Just okay. But yeah, this has been this episode. We've been rambling and shambling long enough. Let's get into the meats of the podcast, because here at Arby's we have the meats.
After a short break. And we're back, Cinematic Fanatics. This is the second half of episode 32 of Cinematic Fantastics review and deep dive into The Mummy's Hand. That was the year 1930? No, 1940. 1940?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. I was just thinking 1930s for some reason.
I guess I had to give you a hand with that one.
Yes, you did. Thank you. And yeah, hold your applause. You don't have to give me a hand now.
Or the nostalgia from the 90s one.
No, I was thinking of the old movie. I was watching The Mummy's Hand again, and I was watching the scene early on where it talks about Karis, and it has kind of the flashback. And I've just been thinking, I've been comparing it with the 1931 Boris Karloff. It just because I wanted to see what parts were then and what parts are now. But we'll go into that.
And this movie is not too much better. It does have like more of a pace that can be considered more like entertaining in quotes than the first movie, because the first movie sort of doesn't have too much going on. It's fairly simplistic, and this one it's like there's a bit more things going on variously, but it's not. More doesn't mean better.
Yeah, is that.
And it's the same. It's the same amount of time. They're just using it with more stuff and putting more stuff.
Is that to its detriment? Because honestly, okay, of the two mummy characters, I have to say Boris Karloff, gives the better performance. I'm sorry, Karis is just, his performance kind of drags.
Exactly, but is this to its detriment? Let's answer this by going into the plot.
Such as it is, right?
Such as it is, and seeing how well they utilize their time. And as I said before, I would be comparing it.
Did they wrap it up really well? That's the question. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, folks. Just kill me now.
Yeah.
Embalm me.
Dad jokes, bad jokes, and dad jokes.
Yeah.
But I've made little notes of where relating to the time, but not everything, because I don't want to come across too judgy and be like, they took 2 minutes on this and 3 minutes and 45 seconds on this, and
Yeah, I mean, we're not cinema sins. I mean, we don't nitpick every second.
It's like, come on, a movie has to introduce itself. It has to say that it's Disney, and it has to introduce itself. You're literally adding one sin for every movie you do because of its 40-second intro. Every Disney movie.
Well, hang on one second. My buddy, talking with him the other day, and this is very interesting before we get started. He said that according to him, there are 4 levels of movie criticism in doing either what he does when he writes articles or when he does podcasts about movies. I think the first level is, this movie was good, or this movie was bad. That's first level.
20th level would be, this took 1 minute, this took 2 minutes.
He's saying there's 4 levels. The next level is being able to contextualize what parts of it were good, but you also can be open and honest with the parts that weren't as great, or that they could have worked a little bit better on. You can't just say a movie was just good, and okay, I guess the podcast is over. That kind of thing. That's why we do these deep dives, is so that we can look at clouds from both sides,
But where it can be interesting, where it's simple, is the, I don't remember their names, but there were these 2 dudes on television who would give thumbs up or thumbs down to something. If one person had a thumbs up...
Ebert and Roper. Yeah.
Oh, right. If one person had thumbs up and another person had a thumbs down, you're getting a great episode.
But they would give the thumbs up thing just to kind of just basically give you a flat what they thought. But when they go into it, they really go the multiple levels. I mean,
yeah, and then they start arguing.
I have to say, and I think we talked about this before, but
might have to watch some of those.
Yeah. We will. We can. But Roger Ebert is probably one of the reasons why a lot of us do movie criticism. He's done it so many years for the Chicago Sun. He did it on TV. That's where I watched him. How would you would see this empty theater, and you'd see him and his co-star Richard Roper, and they'd be looking over at each other and talking about the movies, and they would go, but there's a screen behind them. It's so cool. I had to show you some old episodes. You'll really enjoy it.
We'll have to watch some of those someday, but. This movie does not have as extensive a prelude as this podcast section.
Right.
Unfortunately. We do start with a credit sequence with the background of Egyptian forestry, the place we're about to start the movie in. Haven't recognized a universal background environment in a while, just wanted to recognize it and say it exists. That's what it is. So at the start of the movie, a guy named Andaheb is summoned to the Valley of the Seven Jackals, which looks more Aztec than Egyptian, honestly.
Yeah.
And this is because it was reused from a movie that we mentioned, haven't done. It was called Green Hell.
Yeah, James
And
Whale.
that took place in the jungle, and James Whale directed that.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm really curious about this. I'm going to look that up another one time, maybe tomorrow, and see what if Green Hell, if I can look at it and see what some of those sets look like. Go ahead.
But still, why are the big bricks along the stairs scattered like that? I honestly don't know.
If they're weathered by time or something. They were kind of
But why are they
mismatched.
Yeah, they were scattered like a child was placing them down.
Well, they've been carved out of just rock. So I'm kind of, it looks ancient. I'm giving it kind of a little bit of forgiveness on that.
Time and water at most would like warp it in a direction, and maybe it could shift it downward, but that would be where the hill would lean it to, or gravity.
No, you're right. You're right.
It's just entirely going from straight to diagonal in many places.
That's true, but I will tell you this: a lot of the things in these movies, they're about rule of cool and verisimilitude. Does it look ancient? Can you buy into it? And if you don't look too hard at it. And my thing is, the set looks good. I'm going with it. There's other sets in this series that look really fake and stupid, but I'm telling you, the start of this, it looks pretty good because they already spent money on a previous movie doing the set. So might as well use it. I don't have a problem with this set too much. It's other sets that I kind of have complaint about.
Well, we'll just have to watch the movie and see if it appears like that or if they purposefully did that for this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, Andaheb does arrive here through an extremely quick montage of train and the grasslands of Egypt, being like, "Hey guys, we spent money. We promise."
It's got to be California or Mexico.
Yeah, we said it's California earlier, or should have. So why are they going to the Valley of the Seven Jackals? To answer that question, he is being summoned by the High Priest of Karnak. The priest, being too old and in the middle of dying, is passing on his role to Andaheb. And before he goes, which really the movie just suddenly tosses his appearance on us in first seconds. Before he goes, he tells his tale of the deceased Prince Karas, who, having been secretly in love with Princess Ananka, tried to revive her with extinct and sacred Tana leaves when she died suddenly. But the guards caught him in the act and said, "No touchy," and buried him alive and cut out his tongue.
So the ears of the gods will not be assailed by his unholy curses.
And man, that is hard. Where it's like, oh, they cut out his tongue. Okay, yes.
But did you notice? You noticed, of course, that I was watching it, going, okay, that's a scene with Karloff, and you don't see his face really clearly. Now that's a scene with Tom Tyler.
They did reuse footage from the Mummy.
Do you remember when he was going into the secret compartment at the foot of maybe Isis or Osiris or something, and it's like before it slides out? That's where the Book of the Dead is. Remember, or Book of Thoth or something that he used in the Mummy. In the Mummy movie, 31 or 2 or whatever, it was the Book of Thoth, the one that brings back to life. But in this one, it changes to the new footage with the Tana leaves in it.
Yeah, there was a lot of weirdness going on with we'll reuse this footage, but how do we make it make sense?
Who cares? It looks cool. It saves money.
So they reused a lot of it. They did use the close-ups of the actor in this movie. He plays him, Tom Tyler.
Yeah.
Except for the part where the guards are impaled by the spears is cut a wee bit, so you can't see the spear collision because it's too much for the code. But they probably made up the burying leaves with Karas part to cover their rears in case anyone got suspicious of hey, why did they kill the guards? How do you explain that without going
they killed the priest,
footage?
And then who killed? Then I was making a comment. I said, okay, they killed the priest, so no one would know where was buried. But the guys that killed the priest know where Ananka was buried, so they have to kill themselves.
Yeah, but the guys who killed the slaves know that.
You have to kill them. And they killed themselves.
Just the reused footage does not make sense, in the timeline.
It sounds cool.
In the story.
It feels cool and sounds cool. That is everything
It feels
to these
cool
movies.
and sounds cool, but it can sort of be like, why did they kill the guards? Whoever directed this movie. Cabinet, Professor Cabinet.
Cabinet.
Chris Cabinet, right. So the priests have been keeping him alive keeping Karis alive as the protector of the princess's tomb. And he being, of course, undead, must be given 3 ton of leaves every month and call him in the morning.
They have to give him the gremlins rule.
Yeah, if he gets more than 9 leaves, Karis turns into
an uncontrollable monster, a soulless demon with a desire to kill.
Which, if not already monstrous, the mummy never reaching 9 leaves in this movie leaves. Haha.
Right.
This fact never paid off at all. They're like, oh, if it gets more than 9, then he becomes an uncontrollable monster. He's already sort of a monster this movie, but he never gets more than 9 leaves.
Don't they give him more than the amount later?
No, they just control him.
Okay, I'm misremembering. I think they give him like more at the end of the movie and he just goes nuts.
But he's already, a soulless demon with a desire to kill.
Right, so what's the difference?
The difference is the word uncontrollable, like the un. Just if you add 1 more leaf to the 8, then the un part comes in.
Yeah, it reminds me of the movie Gremlins. There's a rule about the Gremlins, the Mogwai, is if you feed them after midnight, something bad happened. I won't spoil it for you, but here's the thing. The thing that people have mentioned is it's always midnight somewhere on planet Earth. So how does that even make sense?
When they can't see the sun. But what about lunar eclipses?
Right.
We don't see that in Gremlins.
Just enjoy.
Who knows? Maybe lunar eclipses do make them turn monster mode.
Well, it reminded me of the rules on this anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, he did. So meanwhile, in Cairo, a down on his luck American archaeologist Steve and his comedy relief sidekick, Babe.
The pig?
Are walking in...
No. Is he pig in the big Egyptian city? No.
No, but yeah, they're walking in the marketplace like Humphrey Bogart in the middle of Tampico.
Right.
And they discover the remnants of a broken vase in a bazaar. Steve is convinced that it is an authentic ancient Egyptian relic inscribed with clues to the location of Princess Ananka's tomb.
Right.
He spends basically all their money on it, only to visit Andaheb, who's the professor of the Kara Museum. I didn't realize it was Andaheb, I guess, until...
It's the hat.
Well, yeah. But he's told that it is just a common vase, counterfeited and worthless, basically. But Dr. Petrie, who is with him, who works there too, he's impressed, though, by their find, and so he helps support their cause. Unfortunately, Andaheb accidentally, in quotes, drops the jar, so their lead is postponed. Only now does he look at his necklace and say, who defiles the temple of the gods, cruel and violent death, revealing his identity and evil intentions as Andaheb, which past me didn't really get the memo that this was Andaheb and Andaheb was the villain.
Also, one thing that we missed was while they were in the bazaar doing the shopping, there was a guy there who looks like a reject out of an Aladdin. He looked like the beggar from the very beginning of Aladdin, who starts telling the story and singing the Arabian Nights song.
But he will come in later as a lackey to Andaheb, sort of a, in the DuckTales movie that I watched relatively recently.
Was it the pyramid Egyptian movie, or did it have Egypt? Was it the movie?
It did have Egypt in it, but there is the villain is a magician warlock person named Solvani, and there is a lackey there who was an Arab named Dijon who betrayed Scrooge McDuck and the gang for working with him because it's gold. Obviously, it's Kali Baba's treasure. They say it's a pun on Alibaba.
Isn't there a magician in this named Solvani? Oh, in the movie, the magician who actually funds their dig that they meet in the
Murloc.
Right,
sorry.
Okay.
I said Solvani because it was right in front of me.
Sorry, yeah.
Spoilers. Anyway, yeah, it's a Murloc Dijon. It's a Murloc Dijon relationship they've got there.
Right. That sounds good. I like that. I thought there was a DuckTales movie about some kind of lamp.
That is what I'm referring to, is DuckTales the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lake.
That's
that
right.
came out after, relatively after it went out of syndication.
It was an episode. Looked like a longer episode with better graphics to me. That's when I'm.
DuckTales the movie was a full-on movie that came out on theaters, but I'm not getting into that history.
Yeah.
I'll have to wait for sometime later. But yeah, if I haven't mentioned it, for some reason I didn't get the memo on what the plot was, so I didn't realize Andrew Hebb was a villain, especially since he was the professor and he didn't do anything evil or look evil off the bat.
Right.
And especially as the professor, and the professor actually misled the protagonist. But I didn't get the memo that he looked at his thing and it was like, they have to die.
But later he does some pretty evil stuff. Did that kind of clue you in, or it was later you got clued in?
No, he just wasn't as the professor.
Oh, right. You didn't connect that guy and Andohead were the same guy.
Not until after a scene where he and a girl, we'll talk about all that later.
Yeah, okay.
That's probably when I realized, oh, right, he's supposed to be the villain.
Right.
Well, that's one point docked off this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did note we are now 25% through the movie with what little has happened. It's 25% through the movie.
No mummy yet. No mummy yet,
and we're already a fifth through the movie. So Steve and
Babe
still need money for their expedition, and finding themselves in a bar. Babe challenges the bartender to I find the card you chose. Loser pays for the bar's drinks. He challenges the bartender, but that doesn't work. So instead they choose the champion for him. The champion, the problem is his champion is he's challenged Solvani the magician. Who with the power of magic wins the challenge and magics up money to pay the bartender for them.
I like the actor. I like the actor Cecil Kellaway. I remember seeing him in Invisible Man Returns and this. I don't remember anything else, but I did hear that he is going to be in a monster movie later on. So we'll have to watch that later.
All right. So they are on friendly terms, I guess, even though with the magic of cheating, he got through that.
He's a magician. He's got sleight of...
Either he replaced all of the cards with the card he wanted, or just...
I think...
No, it was behind his ear.
Here's what I think. They show the card, like, slipped into the collar, the back collar.
Oh, right, yeah.
So he just did a little sleight of hand trick. He does it all the time with card tricks, for audiences, so why wouldn't he do it in this situation?
Yep. So then, after a little fluff talking, he agrees to fund their tomb quest in return for a share of the spoils, because they're really seeking more help for their expedition, because as I said, they still need money.
He's got money.
He's got money. They wanted to challenge the bar to get more money, but instead, they got Solvani. So next scene, we have Andrew Hebb meets with Marta, who is Solvani's daughter, who's in the middle of packing up and leaving. He is asking about his father's involvement with Steve and Babe's expedition. He's like, you've heard of these no-good goody-two-shoes crooks who have allied with your father.
Oh, the beggar guy, he spied on them talking to Solvani, and he told Andrew Hebb.
Yes. Although even still with this scene, I didn't realize he was the villain somehow.
Yeah.
We were probably just talking way too much. I don't know.
Yeah, we were a little bit, but okay. Why not?
But next, a scene where Solvani fills the wine glasses with his finger, Babe's finger. No, his finger. It's a finger. To which upon an Arab man, the Arab man we saw earlier, I think, hearing Babe croon about the expedition, and being like, let's drink to the gold we're about to find. This leads to a 1-minute bar fight scene.
Wow, yeah.
Next scene, Solvani comes home to her daughter. This scene has little magician jokes that he has sprinkled throughout the scene, such as hopping, at the end of the scene, he hops from one suitcase to another in the joke that I'll come with you, or something. And lots of ear tricks and pulling miscellaneous items out of his bag when trying to fish for the contract. She, having been informed of the expedition already, being like, hey, so you're on an expedition, I know exactly what you're doing. And he's like, oh, must be running the family, and all sorts of stuff. He's sort of jokey about the matter. He confronts him about it, and later she goes pulling a pistol on Steve and Babe's scamminess.
Are she blaming them?
Andrew Hebb sabotaged the situation by saying that they were no good. Solvani comes home and he goes, "Hey, I'm home," and she's like, "Dude, you're with no good crooks. I'm gonna go shoot them up with a gun." But yeah, she goes to their apartment. She pulls the gun on them, pulls the pistol on their scamminess. Steve easily gets the gun away through the power of being behind her.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
And
it's called gun control. Yeah, it's controlled it out of her hand.
And diffuses the situation. Her forcing them to let go with them. I don't understand that sense. So after a sandy montage, a smooth crane shot forward and down, a move I haven't seen since Jekyll and Hyde, 1931, onto the dig site. The two men are talking. That they're zooming on them. The dig site has found nothing yet so far. This is their expedition. Until they find an explorer's skeleton hidden in the ground. Also, there's another dude indicating a rock as being suspicious of containing golden items. So they blow up the rock and find Karras's tomb. I'll mention the short, half one shot, half another, Citizen Kane style big pan up to the villains being on top of this cliff. Haven't seen that in a while since Citizen Kane, obviously. So they combine two shots with the power of fading to make a long, elongated shot. It's relatively quick, so it's like a big whip up, you know?
Yeah, whip pan. Yeah, if you do it fast, you can do a whip pan.
It's not like whipping as in like really fast, but it's not as fast, but it's definitely not as slow as that famous, you know, shot going up and up and up over the performance of Charles Foster Kane's
wife or girlfriend, yeah.
Wife, girlfriend performing opera. So our protagonists are camping near the area, and they learn basically what we already know, that Karras and Ananka exist, and what they are doing, sort of basically. They discovered Karras' tomb instead of Ananka's, however. So Andrew Hebb swoops in to Dr. Petrie. They found the mummy of Karras in there, and they're sort of investigating it. He swoops in onto the scene, obviously when Steve is gone, and demonstrates to Dr. Petrie that the mummy's alive! After I do think they do drop a "it's alive" thing. But the doctor gets choked out by this black-eyed undead. Andrew Hebb gets a monologue with the astonishing return of the Dracula eye highlights, the being too wideness and all. I was surprised. That was like the big, long callback to Dracula, of all things.
Yeah, and now we're getting to see the mummy, finally.
Yeah, there was a lot of various elements in this movie that were like, we're not getting to actual plot material. It's a lot of, we're establishing relationships, I guess, but the next 35% of this movie finally has the mummy in action. So that means that 65% of this movie did not have the mummy in it.
Wow. Of course, again, he killed him with what? His mummy's hand.
His mummy's hand that he holds by his side as if it's... I commented on this earlier that they, like, hold their hands up for some reason. I will have to double check this later, but I think as Tom Tyler had broken his arm beforehand, earlier I think I said he is in the mummy, but I meant Tom Tyler.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know, because he is... I say he, who do I mean? Do I mean Tom Tyler the actor, or do I mean Mummy he? I don't know. So after some brevity, with Babe attempting rock magic and choking on the rock, he's trying to magic the rock. It's a circus trick where, like, you try and swallow something, and then you can keep it in there and then throw it back up and be completely fine. Don't do this at home, kids.
What he did is you have the rock in your palm of your hand, and it's called palming. You palm it. You notice that when he puts it in his mouth, he takes his hand away. The rock is still in his hand. He takes his tongue and puts it in the
cheek.
Side of it, in a cheek, to make it look like the rock. Then he moves it around and it goes like that. And then he of course pulls the rock out of something else. Yeah, it's not really in his mouth at all. It's just a vaudeville sleight of hand trick.
Indeed, but this is not. Don't do this like Kate Weatherall from the Mysterious Benedict Society, where she attempted to swallow keys as part of the circus. I think it does come to some effect, but like she can't really get it right, I guess. But it does come to effect later in the book. But yeah, I'm referring to the Mysterious Benedict Society, the first book, where they're encountering Mr. Benedict and his twin, who is leading this like academy and brainwashing people. It's a really good read. as well as the next, the whole trilogy.
Yeah, they did come out with a series on Disney Plus, but I don't know how many episodes, how much of the books they actually did before they canceled it.
Oh, they canceled it?
I think they did.
And I thought they would. It wasn't super like popular, but
No,
sure
that's
it
why
did
they
adapt it.
Yeah, that's why they do it.
Pretty well, I guess, but not too well, I don't think. That's why I recommend the book. The book will always stick with me because I do definitely remember, like, anytime you get into a puzzle where it's like, don't step on the wrong squares, look down and see if they're rectangles, and you will solve all the mysteries.
Wow.
Steve and Babe do encounter the dead Dr. Pietri, and Babe is like, what's happened to him? And then Steve says, I don't know, Babe. He's dead. And I was like, or we were just collectively like, please rename him. Please. Don't call him Babe. Please. Anything.
Well, like I said, when you get to the Abbott and Costello movies, one of the characters' name is Chick. So he's like, Chick. And I'm like, he's not a chick.
Oh, yeah. If this came out 10 years later, Steve and Babe could be called a terrible Abbott and Costello ripoff, to be honest. Or at most, Babe is the Costello.
When we watch Abbott Costello Meet the Mummy, I'm going to get flashbacks to this movie specifically. Go ahead.
Steve and Marta, basically discover that the tomb is in another castle. The mummy is, he goes a killing folks, with the vial of leaf juice as bait. He captures Marta and brings her away. There's a lot of shots where he's bringing her away because, a lot of the shots he's in, he's just stumbling for like a solid 10 seconds.
Yeah, this is what we remember from the Mummy is wrapped up, stumbling, dragging his foot, and not making any noise with his mouth. That's what we remember.
Yeah, and if you remember the Arab that Andrew had hired, if you do you remember his name?
What, the Dijon guy?
I'll just call him Dijon.
Yes.
That's honestly perfect. If you watch DuckTales or like the ulterior, the latter season of DuckTales, or just the movie, you'll know who Dijon is.
Or Arabian Nights, whatever you want to call him.
Dijon was introduced in the movie, so yeah. He, after fighting and killing him, they do find him. It's like a little gun battle. They shoot him. They resolve to find the passage to Ananka's tomb. Next scene, as the mummy brings the princess, they do a sweeping pan zoom out over the big temple interior and zoom back into the altar with Andrew had. Impressive, the gall to do the shot. And they literally had a whole Frankenstein mansion of a set that they had here. Honestly, it would be something of, oh shoot, there was like a Nickelodeon show with like this talking Aztec head. I feel like it'd be something as big as one of those courses, but that would be smaller still.
Something of the Forbidden Temple or the Mayan Temple or something like that. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like a game show where they were trying to do something, and you had the talking head. It would be like, come on in or something. I can't remember. It was some Secrets of the Forbidden Temple. I think is what it was called.
So yeah, that would definitely be a nostalgic show to see what that's all about. But yeah, it's a game show. You don't really have to watch too many episodes of the game show to get what it's all about. It's a talking head. They get statues as their prize or something. I don't know. So anyway, Andrew Head's real plan as the mummy lays Marta out on this altar table, Shadow of Colossus style. He reveals his real plan, which is for Marta to become immortal for, I don't know. I seriously don't know. He wants her to... I mean, you could have explained this like the reincarnated Ananka, but Ananka doesn't really appear in this movie. Ma'am not appearing in this movie. So, what am I to say? Why? Why do you want her to become immortal? I don't know, but he wants both of them to become immortal, somehow. So, but Steve finds the passage, and, Babe has this climactic duel of the mind of the temple stairs, because Andrew Head goes out and he's like, you're not gonna shoot me, you don't have the gall, but he does, he just shoots him dead, anticlimactically. So Steve attempts to rescue Marta, but since, the bullets don't work on the mummy, he shoots his tonic fluid instead. setting him aflame as he drinks the tana that's going down the drain. And that's really all this movie.
Wow. Does it end with any kind of good news for Steve Banning and Babe? I really want to know what happened to them. I mean, above anything else.
This episode
in this
is
movie.
literally going to be just a little bit longer than the actual Mummy itself, because this plot, while, you know, they literally do pace it all. It's literally paced really fast paced movie, and apparently gets shorter from here and worse from here, and it's not as creepy as the last movie too in general. So that's sort of a review on that. And if you like Indiana Jones, there's some inspiration to it, I can tell from this movie, sort of, in a way. But yeah, like, seriously, if I was able to condense this movie enough so that it would take 40 minutes to recount the entire plot. See, the Mummy utilizes time. This one, it utilized the time. It packed more stuff into it, but I feel like that stuff, if you, like, remove some, like, unnecessary dialogue and funny moments that I have in this, that it could be recounted faster than the movie itself.
Okay.
Which is hilarious, but...
Now, another movie that does the humor right, okay? I think it does the humor right. At least I'm remembering it nostalgically, of course. But it's 1999's The Mummy, which is very much so. It kind of has some element. It really is very much so as a reboot of the first movie. There's some humor moments, but the action is almost nonstop. The humor is great. The characters are great. I'll just leave it with that.
If you actually want a good reboot of the original 1931 classic with Boris Karloff, the origin of the entire series spreading. You know, being rebooted nearly a century later, because why not? You should probably go for the Mummy series. It's pretty good. Although, again, the CGI of Dwayne Johnson could be better.
Oh.
It could definitely be redone.
The Mummy and The Mummy Returns are good. The third one, which is called something about some kind of emperor, or dragon emperor, or whatever, it's not as good, I will tell you. But the first two are pretty good. It did lead to a spinoff called The Scorpion King, which honestly was just a vehicle for Dwayne Johnson to go running around doing his character again. But honestly, it was unnecessary. To be honest, it really didn't need to be told. I think this movie, though, it really is the down. It's the downturn of the series. It's probably. I would compare this probably to Invisible Man's Revenge.
While they're getting better in, you know, visual quality and experience and, you know, cinematographical, you know, capabilities, being like, oh, we can do this, we can do that, let's go do that. Before, they were really just trying to test the waters and, like, invent new ideas. In this, they're sort of innovating on their previous ideas, to not as much, you know, iconicness.
Yeah, they are obsessed with saving money, as a lot of these movies are. Like the less movie that the previous one made, you know, then they want to save more money. Like with this, they reused a lot of they reused the first part, you know, from Green Hell. They reused the origin of Karis, and it was really the origin of Imhotep and, you know, Ankhsenamun. But they made it, you know, Karis and Ananka, mummy, town, attack, you know, movie, you know, it's just, and
I'm looking forward to see what they do with this reboot. As we did say, it will definitely get shorter and worse from here and sort of take a little bit of a nosedive, but we'll be along for the ride, and we'll just be like, at this point, this is where they're starting to go a bit cuckoo crazy.
Yeah, there are going to be some new movies coming out, you know, some new creatures, new monsters, things that are going to reinvigorate, I think, the Universal Monster Movies series. You know, the next one to see, we will see the Wolfman, and when the Wolfman starts coming in, they're like, ooh.
They start, you know, filling out the Halloween costuming, because, you know, if we did not have the Universal Monsters, we would not have good Halloween monsters. We would not have Hotel Transylvania. We would not have, probably not Addams Family, but there's something.
Yeah, the Munsters. The Munsters is another thing.
That's what I was.
The Munsters had, you know, Herman Munster was the dad. He was Frankenstein's monster. The wife was like Dracula's daughter, kind of looking. The grandpa was actually Dracula with a mustache and or, you know, kind of weird hair.
sort of like the House of series, except that they were all
a family.
Except it's a series
Of
and little family.
A lovely family. And the little boy was, I think, a werewolf, Eddie Munster. Yeah, and the only one that was normal was Marilyn, and she was like the only normal one of any of them.
Another thing that'll especially refresh the Universal filled catalog we seem to have this season, a competitor we haven't really seen for a while since the first season, is Paramount Pictures. And I'm wondering to see how they are doing in the 40s with the next episode's movie, 1940s Dr. Cyclops, with the producers and directors of King Kong themselves, which is Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Schoedsack. Lovely to see their minds again doing something new. Although, from what it looks of it, this isn't a top tier movie in terms of reception.
No. But it is memorable because you do have the whole trope of shrunken people in a very unknown world. So we will see that kind of that trope again at least a couple more times through. I think it reminds me of Incredible Shrinking Man and another one that's called either Attack or Invasion of the Puppet People. I can't remember which one that is.
And it's also interesting that it sort of also has an element that's sort of experimenting with radioactive elements. There's uranium and radium in this one that were discovered, well, I don't know about uranium, but radium was discovered by Marie Curie.
These invisible rays.
Her husband.
These magical invisible rays coming from Andromeda, you see.
That wasn't technically radioactive, but radioactivity was really popularized, of course, by World War II.
Well, the element,
we're going to see.
Element X, yeah. But yeah, as we get into World War II, that's going to creep in. People are going to go see movies to see.
But it's interesting we're starting to see this sort of cropping in.
Yeah, like Invisible Agent.
And Invisible Agent, we'll also see some of that too. But Dr. Cyclops is sort of the start of radioactivity as an element which we haven't actually seen in its raw form. That's a bit of a pun for you there. But yeah, this is Cinematic Fantastic. We have it definitely is a fairly short episode, but that's because it's a fairly short movie.
Yeah.
But we talked about it to the breadth of our ability, and we just ended up taking not that much time. But it's still enjoyable to have, these kinds of episodes every once in a while. But yeah, we will have to, of course, end the episode in order to begin to go on to a new movie. And it's definitely going to be exciting.
We got Mad Scientists again, and I think this one is in color. The next couple ones are in color, so enjoy.
Yeah, the next one is Thief of Baghdad after that one.
Yeah.
And Thief of Baghdad, great. It's a great adaptation of the tale of Aladdin from Arabian Nights.
It's not necessarily Aladdin, but it's inspired from the stuff that inspired Aladdin. So it does have a genie in it that we know, and it did win an Oscar for best special effects. It beat out some other movies that we've seen on this list, but we'll see that.
But I definitely do agree. We are going to have to make like all the people during the recent pandemic and steal all the toilet paper and wrap up this podcast.
Let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up.
Voices.
That's a wrap.
All right, goodbye.
That's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to Cinematic Fantastic Podcast. Click here and here for some more excellent content. Hope you'll enjoy it. See you soon.